we'll continue with Lecha Dodi. You can find it on page 20 in your prayer book, and if you're joining from home, you can find it on page 5 of our online prayer book. This beautiful, beautiful piyut, a 500-year-old poem asking us to welcome Shabbat with joy and gladness, reminding us that Shabbat is a gift of love from God to the Jewish people.
Prepare, knowing the sun is getting ready for its descent. I invite you to join me on page 30, on page 9, if you're at home. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, pochma poteach sha'arim, uvitvuna meshanei itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmeroteam barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or.
Torah u'mitzvot u'kimu mishpatim otanu limadeta Aken Adonai Eloheinu b'shוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך
On page 10 at home. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. In just 1 week from tonight, we'll be standing at the foot of the mountain. Shavuot will be upon us, and we hear those words on Shavuot. I am Adonai, your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God, that covenantal relationship that begins not at the foot of the mountain, but actually at the shores of the sea, as the Israelites are ready to cross over. And that moment of crossing over into freedom, is the start of that relationship to which God returns and to which we also return. And so our tradition says, actually, each and every day, we're supposed to return to not to Sinai, but we're supposed to return to the shores of the sea, to Mi Chamocha, to that moment, that first moment of freedom, and I would say that first moment of covenant and first moment of relationship. And so with the joy and the anticipation and all that was in that moment, we turn to the words of Mi Chamocha, page 40 or page 12.
נור words of comfort, of healing, a reminder of God's presence in our every moment. Hashkivenu, page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
Hashkifenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkifenu, Lishalom. Hashkifenu,
Ve'ha'amidenu, shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu, sukat shlomecha.
Hashkifenu,
Hashkivenu
Adonai
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu.
Eloheinu
Hashkifenu,
Lishalom.
Hashkifenu,
And understanding among us. Peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
We're going to continue with the prayer for healing. You can find it on page 253 in your prayer book. And if you're joining from home, you can find it on page 15. And I'll just invite everybody who's praying for someone, you can say that person's name out loud. It can be yourself. You might yourself need that healing of spirit or of body. If you're joining us from home, feel free to put the name of that loved one in the chat. And don't forget, after services, sometime over Shabbat or over the weekend, reach out to that person, call them, visit them, make sure they know that you're thinking of them and that you're sending your love and your prayers for healing of the body and healing of the spirit.
Blessing, and let us say Amen. Nishaberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We'll continue with our silent Amidah in our prayer book here. It's on page 48 it begins. It goes all the way to page 62. Feel free to be inspired by the words of the prayer book. Add your own words of gratitude and petition. If you're joining from home, you can find it on page 16 to 18. I'll invite you as you're able to please rise, and those of you at home, please stand along with us as we take a few moments for silent meditation, giving thanks and praise to God for our many blessings. That was beautiful. Just beautiful. Rabbi,
Have I?
so good to be here. What are we
Welcome
talking
back.
about? Oh, it's so good. It went in like a flash. A flash. You know what else went in a flash?
Don't say it. You're going to give it away. Spoiler alert.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to start with this, that on May 17th, 1998, one young man, Josh Zweiback, was ordained Rav B'Yisrael. And I don't know what they do in the wild, wild east of New York. But here you stand under the chuppah and they say, Rabbi Josh Zweiback.
That's not how they
you
did
didn't
it.
get any of that. All right.
That's not how they did it.
But before, we're going to get back to that. I just want you to hold that for a moment. This week we start the book of Bamidbar. And if you want to learn more about that, you can come learn with us tomorrow morning.
Spirit of Shabbat, 8:45 a.m. Be there.
Because I was told I can't say a lot about it tonight, even though it's my favorite book of Torah. But here's what I want to say. Actually, in the book of Exodus, before we get to Bamidbar, God makes very clear that there is a short path, that there actually is an easy point A to point B getting from Mitzrayim to the Promised Land.
Should take about 6 days on foot.
Sure.
That's what I've been told. 6 days.
And God makes very clear all the way in the book of Exodus that that is not the way that the Israelites are going to go, right? That they actually have a lot of learning they need to do before they can get there. And so I actually think that is the setup for the book of Bamidbar, where we get some of those learnings. And so I would say, so on May 17th, 1998, Josh Zweiback became a Rav Yisrael. And on May 15th, 2023, Rabbi Yoshi Zweiback was granted his Doctor of Divinity, which is
Thank you.
the honorary degree granted by our alma mater upon reaching the milestone of 25 years in the rabbinate. So not quite the 40 years in the desert, though it might never feel that way.
Never. In a flash.
And amazingly looks exactly the same as May 17th, 1998, right, Jacqueline? Exactly. Oh, okay, well, I'll leave that to. But we thought we would just take a couple of moments to sort of reflect on what that has meant and what maybe you've learned. And so I'm going to ask a couple of questions and we'll see where that goes.
Thank you, Rabbi Sarah. And she's not too far behind me, even though
I'm a
she's
spring
significantly
chicken.
younger than I am. She's just like an advanced student because you just celebrated 17 years,
17
in the
years,
rabbinate.
yeah.
So like that. Yes, but please.
Yeah. So exactly, because I look up, with so many years ahead of me until my GG, I am wondering, as you reflect on these 25 years in the rabbinate, what has surprised you the most about the work?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking. I do appreciate it. And it was a wonderful celebration this last Monday at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion campus here in Los Angeles. And it was really wonderful to reconnect with some classmates that I hadn't seen in a long time. And it was also beautiful to watch people like our own Lauren Roth get their master's degree and see people who are getting their master's in education and in teaching. It was just beautiful. But a couple of surprises. One is I was not really prepared when I began my journey as a rabbi for the nonprofit business management side of it all. HR issues, budget issues. I learned, some of you know this very well, the concept of AR aging. And if anyone can explain that to me one more time after services, please do that. Never heard of that in rabbinical school. I've been involved in several capital projects. One right now, we're building our new Aaron Milken Center, and it's so exciting and so much fun. But along the way, I've learned all sorts of things around value engineering, didn't know what that was, and all sorts of questions of, how do you build something so that the maintenance costs are down, all those kinds of things. And actually, I see one of my beloved teachers here, Dr. Michael Zeldin. One of the things that you taught me, Michael, was that a budget is a reflection of our values. And so one thing I've really come to appreciate about all of that business side of things is that those decisions about the budget for next year and what we're going to invest in, those really are a reflection of what we care about as a community. So that's been a wonderful surprise in a lot of ways. The other big surprise is just, and this is in some ways a bit of a tension, or what we call in Hebrew kind of a nigud, when you have these things kind of bumping into each other, how dynamic it is and how static it is at the same time. The holidays roll around every year. Sometimes as a team, we wonder, with Shavuot next week. How come we didn't think about this a little bit earlier? We knew Shavuot was happening about 3,000 years ago. We could have programmed it, but then it's upon you. So that's the static part. Those holidays come again. The Sabbath service, Matbea HaTfilah, the structure of the prayers, it's the same. And yet it's also incredibly dynamic because, well, this year, when we approach Bimidbar, there are things happening in our world that make us think in different ways. Today was Yom Yerushalayim, and if you read the Israeli press today, there were some incidents that happened that are just heart-wrenching to see how some religious nationalists in Israel today have been behaving, and to see the democracy of Israel under threat in ways that 20 years ago I would not have imagined, right? So that's the dynamic part of it all, and the way those two things come together can be incredibly exciting.
I just have to share very quickly, related to that, I was not at graduation, and I'm sorry, but I got to be here the day before here on our campus for the ordination ceremony, where I learned that the ordinands become ordinees, they become rabbis. And my colleague, my classmate, Rabbi Josie Hudson, gave this really beautiful, very moving ordination speech, but thinking about the dynamic and the static, she spoke so beautifully about the challenges and being change makers. But I was also thinking about that tension of the sacred and the mundane, which I think is also sort of the static and the dynamic. And I was like, I joked with her afterwards, but you didn't talk at all about answering email, right? And so I was thinking about also that sort of, I think you go into rabbinic school with the, I'm going to be with people in their most sacred moments, which you get to be, right? You guys know that. But also, you're going to answer some emails and, read a lot of documents and
yeah,
things
when
like
I
that.
started in the rabbinate, there was a lot of faxing that happened. We had to fax
and
a lot.
And you cut and pasted weird.
Yes, and there were cutting and pasting, and exactly, you made a text study sheet with your hands,
Yes.
kids. It's none of this newfangled
there was glue
Safari
involved.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so then the next question, what is, it's hard to pick, it's always hard to pick one text or one lesson, but what is a lesson that you've learned over these short 25 years that has been particularly meaningful that you'd
Well,
want to
there's
share?
so many. As we were preparing for this evening's conversation, I thought a lot about this, and it was very hard to sort of narrow it down. But one, and this is really about this community and every community I've been privileged to share my service with, is just how committed and devoted people are. The folks right here in this sanctuary, the folks joining us from home. This weekend we have a gala, and we're celebrating the leadership of many members of our congregation. We had Yom HaMoreh last week. We celebrated our teachers. This week we celebrated our Wise Parent Association volunteers. And so I'm continually inspired by just how committed folks are. And that's, to me, something that's where you get that static and dynamic coming together again as well, because that's always been the case in Jewish tradition. The way we've been able to perpetuate Jewish life and values is through that deep, deep commitment. And I've also learned, and this has been something that's been incredibly sustaining for me in my own rabbinate, how important it is to keep growing and to keep learning, whether it's specific skills, like, how do I use this particular technology to transmit a message, but also the eternal rabbinic skill of Torah study. So I've been so blessed through HUC, through CCAR, our rabbinic conference, opportunities to study at the Hartman Institute, the Jewish Institute for Spirituality, with Chavruta, just one-on-one with a friend, with my team of colleagues here. That's been a through line in my rabbinate, as I've just kept learning.
So here's this is the easy question to answer. And I realized, I was like, if we were having this conversation 4 years ago, right, say 2019, I think in some ways our answer would be so 2019. Right, our answer would be so different, right? But so what, you look out now and imagine, right, you're Bamidbar, but imagining a promised land, right? What do you see as the great challenge and blessing, which I think often go together, for the next 25 years?
Well, one thing's for sure, and you referenced it by thinking about 2019. Some of the greatest challenges that we're going to confront, we really can't imagine, and that is one of the learnings of COVID-19, is that we thought we had certain things dialed in, and here's our plan for next year, and then you realize there's so much unpredictability. And when we think about climate change and other things that are happening in our world today, again, democracy under attack in Israel, and to a certain extent, certainly in our own country as well, those were things that I did not imagine 25 years ago. So the big challenge is we don't really know what they'll be necessarily. But one of the things that we can look at is thinking about generationally, how Generation Y, the millennials, Generation Z, Generation Alpha, which is how they're describing those born, in the last 15 years or so, how these folks will connect to community is something that we can't imagine. My youngest daughter was sharing with me an assignment that she just had, and in the assignment it said, and you can't use AI for this. And that was something that 6 months ago, there's no teacher would put that because it wasn't possible. But now, of course, it is. And in fact, our conversation tonight has been generated by AI. So thank you, ChatGPT. Appreciate that. I think in terms of the blessing.
I actually am ChatGPT.
That's exactly right, yes. Rabbi, in terms of the blessing, what I would say, or the opportunity is, as unpredictable as it all is, and as much as we don't know what some of these challenges will be, here's what I have perfect faith in, is that as long as there are human beings, and I won't say on this planet, because I would just say, in this universe, because who knows where we'll be, but as long as there are human beings around, I think when Friday night rolls around, some of those human beings are going to light Shabbat candles and say some of the very same prayers that we just said. The melodies might be different, and the context might be different, but that will be there. And we'll say Kiddush, and we'll study Parashat HaShavua, and when the holidays roll around, we'll find new ways to make meaning, and we'll know that Shavuot's coming, and we better get the cheesecake ready or whatever it is. So that I feel very confident in, and that gives me a great sense of security, because I know, okay, the world's going to just keep on changing back to that static dynamic thing. It's just going to keep on changing, but there's going to be certain places where we're going to find that sense of home and that sense of security that comes with that. So we'll continue these kinds of conversations, because before you know it, it'll be your 25th, Rabbi Sari, and we'll get to celebrate that. But again, I'm grateful to one of my teachers who's here, and I can use you, Dr. Zeldin, to represent the entire faculty, because it really is every single day in my rabbinate as a Jewish educator. The lessons that I learned at HUC sustained me in very, very powerful ways, and the relationships, probably more than anything else, the relationships of my classmates and colleagues and of my beloved teachers help me day by day. So I'm filled with gratitude.
Amen. And I will say, traditionally, when someone has a birthday, you say Ad Mea V'Esrim, right, until 120. I don't know what one says upon achieving Doctor of Divinity. So we'll just say Ad Mea V'Esrim, that you continue in your rabbinate till 120. Well, look the same as you did in 1998.
There's going to be
all
sorts of new gene therapies that'll be
holograms.
Great. So, exactly.
So we'll continue our service with turning to prayers for our country and prayers for our community. I was teaching adults recently, and someone asked, are the prayers that we say the same as they were in the Talmud? And I said, well, yes and no, right? They didn't have a prayer for the United States. They didn't have a prayer for Israel, because those things did not exist in the way they do now. And yet, right, I would say that the themes existed in our prayers, and the values, and that tension of the static and the dynamic did exist. And so while the words might be different and the entities about which we are praying might be different, the values and the hopes and the dreams are very much the same. So we continue on page 258, page 21. If you're joining us at home, please join me. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen. Can I have the prayer? Oh, the prayer. Read the prayer.
Avinu shebashamayim, tzur Yisrael v'goalo,
here on page 259 or page 22. O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Amen.
So in just a moment, we're going to turn to the Kiddush. We're actually going to turn to it right now for Erev Shabbat. It is on page 5 or on page 23 at home. We're going to invite the Dan family to come back up to celebrate their simcha. We're going to invite a few other people up as well, but before we invite those other people up, I just want to see if anyone else here in the sanctuary has a simcha, if we have any birthdays or anniversaries, or we have some graduations. You just hold for a moment. Ruby's just excited, so sure. Come on up, girl. Come up here. Yep. This time up on the beam. So I want to invite, he doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I'm going to invite Lauren. Lauren is not only celebrating graduation, but also an upcoming marriage, and her fiance, Aaron, who's here with us, also celebrating a graduation and upcoming marriage. So we'll invite them to come and celebrate. And we have Rabbi Yoshi celebrating his DD, and maybe we'll embarrass Jacqueline and Ariella, who are both also returning. Yeah, you guys can come up. We missed you. Exactly. We couldn't have done it without them. Ariella finished her semester abroad. So we'll invite everyone, as you're able, please rise for the Kiddush, page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'rotzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho me'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lemaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tefila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'chorta ve'otanu kidashta mikol Shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinechaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim, wish Shabbat Shalom to people around you.
And you can remain standing on page 282 for Aleinu L'Shabach. And Ruby, maybe you'll help me open the ark doors. Can you help me?
Aleinu L'Shabach Ladon HaKol, Latet Gedula Liotzer Bereshit, Shelo Asanu Kirei Haratzot, Velo Samanu Kemishpechot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam. Anachnu korim umishtachavim umoldim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayom Ushemo
seated, please. We turn to a kavanah before our prayer of memory, and you can find it on page 291 in your prayer book. It's hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world. In each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one whose life, now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. Beautiful words by our teacher, Rabbi Richard Levy, of blessed memory. Kaddish Yatom can be found on page 494, and I want to invite you, if you're in the period of Shiva or Shloshim, the first 7 or 30 days of mourning, to please rise. You can say the name of your loved one aloud. If you're joining from home and you want to put the name of a loved one in the chat, please do so. If this is the first year of mourning the loss of a loved one, please rise. And if this Shabbat is the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise. And again, feel free to say the name of that loved one aloud or put the name in the chat. I'll invite everybody, if it's your custom, to stand in solidarity with the mourners as we give thanks to God for the gift of life itself. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'galau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'richu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, tamiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high places make peace for us here on earth, for us and for all Israel and for all humanity. We say together, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated.
Everyone have a seat. Rabbi, I never want to interrupt you.
Really?
Whatever you were just about to say.
I was going to say something very important.
We have to interrupt you.
Yes.
And on behalf of our entire community, on behalf of your class, on behalf of every single person that you have served as rabbi, we just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. To know that you are our rabbi, our teacher, our friend, and now our doctor.
Oh my goodness.
It's just so exciting and so special and so symbolic of how much you, with your whole heart, I think, serve two people. First and foremost, your family, and second, the Jewish people. And that's really an example for all of us. You don't have to be a rabbi to do that. But you are an exemplar. And Ruby's so my family would like to be involved.
Ruby wants you to model the same
and we want to call
thing.
Lauren up as well. Lauren, we want to thank you for all of your service. You don't have to open it here, but we have a talit for you. Just as a thank you for everything that you've done for our community. And we know you're just going to go from strength to strength in everything that you do. And we just love and cherish you, your talent, and your voice and your heart that you've brought to this community. So we'd like to call up Jacqueline and Ariella and Aaron one more time. We want to call up your families. And on behalf of our community and the Jewish people, we want to give you a blessing. We love you, we see you, we appreciate you. Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and protect you always.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God's light shine on you and be kind and compassionate to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha וישם לך שלום, וישם לך שלום.
May each of you, as you have, continue to go out in the world and each in your own way continue to model and bring and ultimately find the gift of wholeness and the gift of peace and the gift of shalom.
וישם לך שלום. אמן ואמן ואמן.
I just want to say that when this one was that one's age, she would come and stand on the bima and dance here. Dan remembers.
Aww.
She would stand on the bima, and I'd be playing my guitar, and so she'd stand on this side, and she'd just put one arm around my leg and the other thumb in her mouth, and just look out and see
And
everybody.
she still wants to be here. So
Exactly.
you did something right, both of you. We
That
want to
works.
thank you all for coming. We want to wish Mazel Tov to the Dan family, and we're so excited to celebrate with you tomorrow. Thank you to our production team, everyone who made this service possible, Karen Goldenstein, who holds it down for all of us.
To Tali and Jeff, always for making beautiful music for us.
We're going to conclude with words of blessing. They're on your handout. Online, you have them in your prayer book on page 36.
Thank
A
you,
blessing
Rabbi.
for our teachers and our students and our friends. Much wisdom have I learned from my teachers. More have I learned from my friends, from my students, have I learned the most of all. הרבה למדתי מרבותיי, ומחבריי יותר מרבותיי, ומתלמידיי יותר מכולן, יותר מכולן. Turn it and turn it and turn it, turn it and turn it around. Everything is in it, everything is in it. Turn it and turn it around. Turn it and turn it and turn it. Turn it and turn it around. Everything is in it, everything is in it. Turn it and turn it and turn it around. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
And Mazel tov.